kept
to the
up
dark room.
with tutors in the hospital and stuff like that.
So you
But then she got to high school, and the first year of high school didn't work out, so we took out, it was just gonna have her start the next time, and then something else happened. And now we just switched her to homeschool, and it's working out.
You're gonna get ahead.
But she lost, like, she did all of her grade school stuff fine, mostly. And then once high school hit, and she had some issues, and now she's behind.
Teacher in college.
Yeah.
So I tried to be
Yeah, which is homeschooling and tutors.
How do you feel?
And she does some math stuff now. I don't.
The meeting just starts.
I'm a computer programmer, so I use math a lot. She can find it.
It's gonna be a small
But this
class.
math, I don't know.
Yeah,
no,
I
I
just
did.
showed up.
So she needs help with math.
So
Like, okay,
if you're showing people.
what are you working on? Then I have to study and I have to remember it and look it up. And all of a sudden, do it along with TVs.
Okay,
So that's the point
so
where
this is only.
we just got our tutor to help us out. So that way.
And I don't think we need it on the TVs. Do you think we need that? Whenever you're gonna show the login, do we need another TV? No, because everybody's getting. Yeah, yeah. It's low. Yeah, this camera is on this one here. Yep. And I don't know that it's necessary to really.
And he's got set up, where he's got a core
Yeah.
But yeah, everything else like, well, this way I can.
a core of 12-inch hole.
Most of the, chunks like this where I can just, so you can either cut it like this, or you can cut it like this, and we'll cut it like this, you can cut it like this, now you got this nice shape.
Right now, probably my daughter
So
remembers.
that's what food out pieces before, just different things that. What
She
you
will.
can do.
I set, the oven has its cook time, so after a certain amount of time, I have it shut off.
My wife went up there.
And then this one of these,
Remember that
this
the
is two
dinner
halves
was
of the
gonna be
same,
ready
and I'll
at,
turn one of them,
At 6
and
o'clock.
then
Then that's her own fault.
this is
We're having just.
two halves.
Yeah.
And then, just so how I can get this all through here, and, I could have had it all this deep,
And it was
but
really
by
interesting.
doing this, I'm gonna wind up with this color, just like that. That will run through the bottom,
Can I show you around?
and that's what this whole thing's about.
Right.
And then I actually got this set up so I can actually round that off.
I haven't been
And
turning.
because it's junk, I can probably even take it off. I don't think I've ever showed anybody how I actually
When I
remove the tenon completely. But this is really out of round, so I can at least show them how I make it round again, to put back in the
Got a
cup.
bowl shape on it.
So I kind of used to, the way I was held it, I would hold it like this and manipulate it
Then
by,
turn it.
I would be pulling on my
And then
thumb.
this is the crotch,
If I do that, it hurts. So,
and this is how it came out of the
like, I've
tree.
been trying to just find different ways.
You don't need a giant tenon,
To hold it,
but
maintain
that's all you need for a tenon,
fine control.
if you do it right.
It's like holding it.
And I'm
like
doing it
that.
right, and make sure you have a
Almost
big
didn't
tenon.
recognize it.
I know it, I was sitting
I
on.
learned to learn holding it a certain way.
Yeah,
And then, again, this is just examples, so,
Right.
trying to figure out another way.
what you can do if you pay
That
attention, and get
plus
this at
everything
the
else
level.
going on.
And the same thing with this here.
Oh, excellent.
You focus on this and let this slide out a little bit, so that way this stays.
Here's yours over here.
Loaded in.
And then that's the eyes.
Too much going on in the yard and around the
I was,
property.
any scrap wood that I didn't have,
I think
one,
about
I'm
it.
trying to get one of
Retired, so I got
the
all
ones
this
I had.
And
And then-
honey-do list.
And I'll take,
Family.
It's always-
Yeah.
it's always something.
and then I'll take this one that's already, and then I can just
Did you make them hunt for
clean
him?
that out and
What's
show.
that?
You make them
how
hunt
that is,
for them?
depending on what kind of time, I can throw one of them in and show you how I
How long does it
really
take you
blast
to do
away
one?
some of this
Well,
oxide.
that's part of the
Yeah, I
challenge.
think what you're talking about over there,
Is-
showing it.
I got it down so I could crank them out.
It's key,
I
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention to I wasn't
time wise.
checking
If you don't get
the shape and all that, and they
Yeah,
got.
but
there's some
I'll be
don't
able
look
to
like
at
it.
least get to this
I'll
inside.
be honest.
And then,
It's
you know,
just a
all
different
that
species.
and make that long
Right, yeah, it's
Guinea
worth
on
ostrich.
both.
Yeah, there we go. Give me it.
Okay.
It's the bottom eggs.
He wasn't squeezing
Okay.
hard to get that really out, it all came out real quick. Right.
At least that's what I think.
Where should we start?
Shadow. So I focus.
That one,
on the pins, and then push that right along. The trouble is you have to keep the
Yeah.
sawdust.
Mike and I, we took one of these
Question is, are
apart.
you gonna be able to put them back in
And
the
I had it.
same order?
So
Oh, you got marked
out.
Ah,
Yeah,
there we
if I
go.
could find it.
I know most of them, but some of them I can't remember the names, cause it's a, you know, there's, there's one of them, can't even pronounce it.
How's,
Peloton,
He's in Vermont.
the Luton.
oh, he's back to Vermont again?
Yeah,
And then
they
there's
go about
another
once a
one,
month, I guess.
Elwara or something.
What's he got, a house up there? or-
Where'd you get
No,
yours?
they do,
Cookwoods.
Okay.
acupuncture, him and his wife. I don't know why they go all the way to Vermont, I
One
guess they
particular
like the
guy
person
was,
that's up there.
I
It's
had
about
swallowed
Burlington.
this wood.
That's, they go up there just for the acupuncture.
Just for that.
I am for new because I don't have any room.
It's a
Actually.
probably good 5 hour drive.
I know where Burlington, Vermont is.
One's down to the bottom.
Like, gee,
That's
maybe
how
we
we
should
should
find
get a
something
better-
closer.
We'll pass them around.
My wife likes this lake.
I
There's
I have
some
two
that,
cheaper
So
ones.
for them, it's, I guess,
So I
a
have
couple
two
of days
separate desks.
away from home,
this is one,
a trip.
and,
Literally leave that house for all the tea in China, that freaking workshop, boy, I'd move right. I would take that room where his wife's stuff is, throw her out, put my bed right there. So you go from there
yeah.
to there, upstairs, grab a coffee, back to there, back to there. That's it.
Cutting fires.
So he's got a nice setup.
There was a member who just joined the other club,
Splitting in waves.
and I can't get the detail out of him.
And he goes,
55.
oh, I better save this.
And so he came in, and he's like, I just retired, I retired when I was 55, and I'm ready now to
I called it fire around.
do my thing, you know? And so he's got a background in arts and a background in other, he's well educated.
The other one.
And,
What I was doing is.
He's like, first I had to build my shop. Built
The
this
other one,
fucking shop.
you know, you cut a
It's,
blank for a burl.
it's like 25 by
I got
50,
just enough room.
outdoor, 2-story, with a loft, elevator, the car and the backhoe fit in there, plus his workshop. I mean, all insulated, heated, AC. I'm like,
This one,
what do you do for a living? And he wouldn't, I was like, would you hit the fucking lottery? I mean,
Thanks.
expensive house that I'd rather have the shop that he just built. I mean, a beautiful.
rural, like not.
Matt,
No.
Oh, not that one.
No.
No.
This member just joined the other club. He's up in Attleboro. And he's retired at 55.
That's
He
crazy.
won't tell me what he, cause I got out of the truck and I'm like,
What'd you do?
did you hit the fucking ladder? I mean, he's like, no, I'm retired. I'm like,
Well,
I'm still working and I ain't building no, I mean, this shop, oh my, the money he laid out. And he had to get one of those automatic driving lifts to do the ceiling. So he kept the lift. He's like, well, I bought the lift because I needed it. And now the lift, you get on the lift to get to the second floor with your plywood and your lumber. And you walk out into the, you know, the ceiling, all insulated. You know, he's like, here's where I store my, he wants to build a canoe. So he's got 20-foot strips ready to go downstairs and get on the table saw, the table saw, the band saw, the dust collection system, the joiner, the plane. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Anything else?
He's ready to go on business. What a beautiful job. I still like Paul though, but his
Paul's got a
cleanliness,
nice setup.
cleanliness is
It's organized.
You can see the 3 bells.
Yeah,
That's the one you usually put up. All the way up to here.
And that's.
See where it's shining 3 different
Well,
places?
I use that.
Yeah,
instead of
one
shit
here,
like
one
that.
here, one
And that's
I
right.
was
And
first
so your
one
microbial
while
will be
turning.
up to here.
right in here.
Yeah,
And it'd just be
yeah, it would just.
thin like this,
Right.
real thin.
Yeah, but I can bring this middle one up to here to get that
Problem.
microbial.
So-
If you start
those
going too
things
fast,
will
you
not
start
work
saying,
with
well,
my
I can visualize it. And that's
You wanna-
where this started next. It just a
That-
little bit
Yeah,
of
that's
a
my
change.
custom mail, so that's my side.
And it doesn't
So
look
this
like
demo,
anything.
this guy, Matt Monaco,
But
is his
Yeah.
name? and he did a demo for art, American Revolutionary Terms. So I went to it because I guess Central New England paid for half of the thing, so we could go to.
So I got the biggest one I could,
4 or 5 hours long. It's amazing, but to watch this guy turn, his production turn. Now he just teaches. So it's amazing how he turns.
Wow.
There's a bunch that.
That's
He
a
does.
long
The only
meeting.
reason
Was
we
it
call
like
that
on a
just is
Saturday or
it's
something? Was it a special
No, it's
meeting?
on
On a work night?
Wednesday night.
We're about to.
4 or 5 hours?
5:30 to 9:30. 4 hours, and then there was, I left at 9:30 because it's an hour and a half drive home. So I got home after 11 because they were doing road work. It's
I
pretty
could probably
cool.
take one of those.
But he did spindle turning as well as bowl.
Which is on the other side of it.
Yeah, during COVID, we hooked up with ART and they would do like host one demo. Then the next month, we would host the demo all on Zoom. Back in COVID, you couldn't go anywhere. So, yeah, I know all those, well, I don't know them, but I saw them all on Zoom, you know.
You ever hear of Patty Brown? You know where
It was
the
a
fire
fascinating,
station is?
fascinating demo. I learned a bunch. Of course, I haven't applied any of it, but I've
My
learned.
workshop's in the basement.
Is it 138?
Maybe I'll remember.
Enclosed with the shower curtain.
Yes.
My,
Downstairs pair.
So Central New England got thrown out, temporarily thrown out of their meeting place for 3
Patty
months.
Brown.
They're in an old town hall, fancy, I don't know if you've ever been there, fancy building. So a film crew wants to use it for 3
Her
months.
sister
So
and
they're
my
paying the
uncle.
town a bunch of money to use it, so, you know,
So they're temporarily.
see you
homeless.
later. Come back in
Yes,
August.
sir.
They're trying to figure out how to, they're meeting at a sawmill
Next
next month. And they're trying to figure out the other ones, what they're gonna do.
Well, a couple of those members have fairly good jobs, no one thing. Sure, they can get like 3.
Their meetings, they've had 50, 60 guys in.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's huge. It's like,
At that point, they're better off going Zoom.
yeah.
3 months.
And they got all this fancy equipment. I'm like, why are we doing Zoom? You know, go to someone's shop and do Zoom, and everyone's for one.
That's the only really answer, I mean.
Yeah.
Because you can't move everything for 3 months and move it all back.
No, they had to take one of the, maybe 1 or 2 of the lids out, because you can't go back in the building. They had to take a lot of equipment out of the building.
So, wow, that's an inconvenience.
Yeah, so it's stored in one of the member shops right now, I guess.
There's a long time.
Wow.
Because they do a lot of demos during the summer. They probably do 6,
And this was
at least one a month
You get a
at
catch.
fairs. So they go to different fairs, craft
And then
shows,
all
or
of a sudden
whatever.
the shape.
Just set up,
Um,
not so much to sell, but to try
there were a
and
couple times when.
publicize. That's how they get a lot of money.
On the outside of a bowl.
You know,
You know, you shear,
a lot of
shear
people
cut
come
with
in.
the bulk out, just to smooth that out.
659.
What I did have.
John, can you pull that up just to make sure it's,
Is, for doing the final smoothing would be probably using carbide.
according to the directions, it's ready and running.
Because
Hopefully I don't screw it up
I
this month.
haven't, I can't.
I
use
did your
the
demo
one
last
that-
month and it went out at 7 minutes.
I've got the.
So by the time you started, the video stopped.
Take your break straight.
I didn't know, I was.
Shark.
That's all right.
Because I had.
That's a learning process, right?
I like that one. Yeah, every other one catch.
So it is live.
Because when
Yeah.
they say they do, you're
Perfect.
supposed to put it on.
The slight delay is a
and then
little-
bring it
Oh, yeah,
down.
no,
Nerving.
it should be about
And so
5
you put
to
the
10
double-
seconds
double
behind.
on its face.
or more. Sometimes it was like
If
10.
you're just using.
But that's YouTube to live. I know
Right,
that.
well, tell them.
That I knew.
There is a bevel,
But if you're on the other end, you would never know that.
That's why I said, they tell you when you do it, you put the
One,
devil on,
two,
and you
yeah.
bring it
Yeah.
down till the point where you
3-4
start.
seconds.
Yeah.
Not bad.
But if you're watching it from the outside, you don't know there's a
I'll
delay.
ride in the middle.
No.
You'd only know it's a delay if you're watching both.
Oh, if you're here,
With the boat.
Right.
strange person like me.
But the video, the quality looks pretty good though.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's fine. You touch it, now you're riding the bevel till you get to the cup.
We might as well get
Yeah.
started.
All right.
Around that bevel, and then you work that bevel. No? But if you bring it off the bevel, now you just got a point digging in, the same as with the skew, if you bring it up off that bevel, now you just.
It's already started.
And that's when you catch.
Yeah, the bad things happen when you don't do it right.
Hey, welcome to the meeting.
Yeah.
Not as many people here today, but that's okay. Funny thing, how long have I been president?
About a year and a
Year?
half.
Year?
And a half, going on a half, yeah.
So we have a newsletter, which I haven't ever been getting, which hopefully we figured that out now. So,
You haven't been getting it either?
no,
Good, I'm sorry, but I,
no. So I'm helping edit it, so I see what it is before it goes up. I've never seen it. Come through email. So I didn't know that everything got switched up. So Roland's gonna be doing the demo, instead of Paul.
Yep.
Which everyone else knows, but.
Yep.
but me.
Well, if you read the newsletter.
So that's that.
So why don't we just pause for a second? You don't get the newsletter either? Okay, Jane, you don't get, you're stopped. Anybody else not get it?
and I changed my email
Okay.
on that too.
So I did this with John today, and this is what you need to do. So you go on Ocean Woodturners, go on the members, and then it says become a member. You click on become a member. And about the third paragraph down, it says join our email list. You click on that, and all you got to do is put in your email address and click subscribe. It gives you subscribe some of it, subscribe only what you want. Just click subscribe and make sure that you're on there. Once you do it, you can email the club can email you. You know, you can go on oceanwoodturnersfreelist.com and send an email like, hey, I'm doing this bowl and it's all fucked up. What do I do? And 5 or 6 people could chime in.
So the
Yeah,
email
but
that you get the newsletter from,
it's
if
the
you
same.
If you reply to that,
It goes
to
to
all the club
everybody.
members.
Goes to everybody, right?
Yeah,
So
the
if
last
you
one
have
I
a,
put 11. November was the last one I got.
okay, but if,
so
so it might have, for some reason, you may have unsubscribed yourself or changed something without realizing it. But just go on and put your email back in. And if you do put it in and you're already a member, it will say you're already a member.
it sends you an email saying, did you really want to sign up? You just click on it and then you're done. So, interesting.
Yeah.
Money wise, we're still doing good. We don't have a lot of expenses this year. In checking, we have $1,378, and we have a 6-month CD, which is up to $5,249. 25 paid members, 5 lifetime members. Let's see. So we have one. Hello. Do you have anything to show us?
I do.
All right. I was going to say that because we're about to do that. So we have 2.
Now that Jim's here, we can begin the meeting.
Yes. Do you get the newsletter? Do you get the newsletter? Works for you to get the newsletter? Okay. I've got a discussion. Some of us weren't getting. So Roland's going to be doing the demo. Why don't we do a show and tell? And get into the demo.
Yeah, so when you get into, just briefly, so last month, we're got this in progress. Last month, I put the video on YouTube Live, and for some reason, it stopped at 7 minutes. Hopefully, I think we may have figured that out. But so we're not doing Zoom anymore. We're doing the YouTube Live. And with that said, we're going to work on a way that these YouTube Live videos will go to our website. Then you can go to the website and watch any video again. That's the whole idea of getting this rolling. Hopefully, bear with me. But anybody has experience at this, jump right in and take over. But otherwise, I think we got it. I'd also like to throw out too, I talked to Peter a couple of times about it. when that CD matures, we should get ourselves a really nice chuck. Everybody brings in their own chuck to do the demo, because when we got this lathe, we don't have the chuck that fits the lathe anymore. So anybody have a thought on that we should have our own club lathe, or would you rather
That
just?
thought wouldn't hurt, but I think somebody, say just like myself, I'd rather have my own truck
You'd rather have your own,
because I'm familiar with it.
right? But if you got here and you forgot to bring it, we wouldn't
Well,
have
yeah,
one.
then you have one, then I would make do with.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's not like we're broke. We got $6,000. Can we have a $250 chuck?
What's the thread on the,
It's the 1/8, 1 1/4 by 8. Yeah. You know,
I would vote yes for that.
You know, I mean, it's
Hear
not
no
a-
objections.
it's not a hurry type thing, but you know, when the CD matures, it's not gaining any interest. Why not drop, you know, a nice Vic mark on there, or a
Yep.
one-way stronghold, or
August second.
you know,
So the CD matures on August second.
we're not in a hurry. So,
Take care
and
of
there's no meeting in July, so there's only one more meeting. Cool.
any other old business, new business.
So do you want me to then, when that CD comes mature, and just take the interest out and roll over the 5,000?
Well, let's bring that up for a vote when it's just about ready. So in the August meeting,
Okay,
or do you need to know before that? We could talk.
August,
Why don't you?
August 2nd, we have 10 days after August 2nd.
Okay, so why don't we take a look at that in June? If you get a chance, could you see what, I know you can't predict August rates, but if they're only gonna be 1%,
Yeah,
or do we go to a different bank?
It's still in the 4% range.
Ours I think it's the bank we're at. It rolled into.
Oh, yeah, but you can't let them roll, you have to redo it, because it will always
No, mine,
roll into that shit one.
mine rolls into whatever the normal rate is.
No, whatever, yeah, but you can get the 4%. I do it all the time.
Yeah, well, that
But you
particular
have
bank.
to ask for it and
Yeah.
say, if you want my money, you're gonna give me this.
That's
If
it.
you get a chance, if you're at the bank, just, you know, hey, you know,
Yep.
cause yeah, you could just pull the interest or just drop it to 4,500 or whatever. Or just don't even, you know. I'll try to do some homework on I think the chuck is about 350, give or take, for a Vic mark or a one-way stronghold or something
which
decent.
even if we took it out of the checking, would still leave us almost $1,000.
Right, would still be okay. So, all right, food for thought for the June or July meeting.
Or show your eggs. Bob,
Eggs.
He's got an excellent demonstration.
Oh.
is the bowl part of the devil?
Actually, it was a bowl sitting around my shop just, and it's like, okay, might as well get it, put a finish on it that I wasn't real happy with and use it to display the eggs. But I wanted to try and do some eggs, and so I started, and then it's like, oh gee, it worked out. Started going through the shop, all the scraps. I wanted to try and do an egg for every type of wood that I had. And then I placed a couple orders with Cook Woods and got some other stuff. Actually, I had a piece of big leaf fancy maple burl that just arrived today. But you know, spalted maple and cocobola, pink ivory, and some ones I can't pronounce. Carob, both marble wood and zebra wood. Can't really tell the difference. Bloodwood, red heart, purple heart. There's a couple burls, and I'm mentioning earlier. Here's a maple burl. I've got a couple that a friend of mine was cutting some firewood and he was splitting it and it was kind of wavy and he goes, oh, I better save this for Bob. So I've got a couple firewood pieces that I cut up, and it actually is, this one's ambrosia. but it's got some really interesting figure to it, and I didn't know what to call it, so I just called it firewood maple. But one thing, this is one of the ambrosia maples, I got down to, I was getting faster and faster as I was doing more. I ended up doing about 50. But one of the problems with going faster is you figure, oh, I don't need to worry about the template. I've been doing enough of them, I can eye it. And then you get stuff that, really doesn't look like an egg. At least an egg that you have in your refrigerator. And then there's a couple where you get a catch, and then when you try and smooth it out, it gets a little bit more shallower than normal. But it was fun. I got it down where I could get it in probably 20 to 25 minutes. But that's in multiple steps, getting all the blanks cut, get it all centered and tap it with get an awl to get the groove or the dot in there. And then turning it down, I was looking at different things online. One of them, grab it in a chuck, turn it all, and then you put it in a some type of handmade chuck or jam chuck, and
More speed and numbering. 26.
yeah, trying to keep track of. I think that's Red Heart. Is it Bloodwood? But I found the easiest and not wasting a lot of wood is you cut it, about 3 1/4 inches, and I could probably go a little bit less, and just turn it between centers. And you can do it pretty quick, but you need to follow the template to get the right shape. And I was picking through my egg carton, going, this one, I like this one better. And then you try and, draw it on paper and then transfer it onto a piece of wood and all that. But I would turn all of the chunks of wood, get the egg shape, friction polish it up to, the ends, and then set it aside. And I do, 6 or 8 of those. Then I get the handmade chuck out of PVC pipe and hose clamps to grab onto it, and you bring the tailstock up, and that's where, keeping that end on, it helps center it. Then you clamp down on the hose clamps, and then you can turn it away, sand it, and friction polish it. Then you just pull it out, flip it in, and do the same thing. And I was getting it to be about 10 to 12 minutes for the basic shape, and 10 to 12 minutes when it was in the PVC chuck. Depending on the wood, some woods that are really light, soft, crank those suckers right out. Some of the harder woods, it's a little bit tougher, especially when you're doing the burls and getting checks or something. But some of them are not really egg shaped, and that's
Being too hard on yourself.
oh.
No chicken's perfect either.
Well, that's one of the things that it's one of those nobody. Yeah,
It's not gonna be in the right number.
nah, it's easy enough to put them back in. But everyone because at Easter, everybody was grabbing an egg, and there was one, I had one spalted, and my best friend grabbed it. I'm like, piece I have, and I had another piece that was just a little bit smaller, and I was able to figure out a way to grab it, and get another spalted because it does look good. It's the first time I tried using Wengi, and that once you do the friction polish, and then I used the Beal buffing. The Beal buffing really made a difference but the box elder, these were pieces from a bowl blank, or not a half log that I got from Mike Murray years ago. Remember when he had that big thing of box elder in his backyard? I save all the scraps. I've got boxes of just scraps to find, and so that's where I got the box elder from, was from those scraps. It was fun. And then the other one is the, like I said, I did about 50, but you can feel some of them are so light, and then others like the Coca-Cola or the pink ivory or purple heart are so much denser.
You can put a dent in somebody's head if you throw it out.
Well,
Friction polish, is that a brand name?
the what's that?
Friction polish, is that a brand name?
No, I was using, I started with the first couple I did with the Mylans, friction polish, and then I switched to Aussie oil. I thought that seemed to do a better job. But when you talk about throwing them, using the Beal buffing wheels, I got the 3 wheels. You gotta pay attention, because every once in a while it would grab. I'd probably about 5 of them went flying around. I'm like, don't break. And there was a couple that had just a little nick. A couple of them you couldn't even tell they went flying, but they bounce really well. And then this one, again, made up name. Didn't know what kind of, and so I just called it fire maple because it looks like fire. So, but yeah, it was. I don't know anybody still around that used to go to Mike Murray's companies, the bakery, for our meetings. Anybody still around from them? Somebody had brought in a slab, about 5 inches thick, 6 inches thick. It was about this wide and about this high, and it was maple, and it had all kinds of stuff on it. And we were putting in, you put your initials on dollar bills, and you put it in somebody's bowl, and your name gets drawn. You get to pick whatever pieces of wood somebody brought in. I got that slab, and I've gotten out a bunch of bowls, and this was the last of the slab. So didn't mean to take up so much of the meeting talking.
Bob, bring an egg carton over if you don't mind.
Oh,
I can't make the camera go that far. Just one. Just one is all I need to. So I don't know if anybody's actually watching, but thank you.
Yep.
No one else? Go ahead. Okay.
So you guys probably know I mostly do segmented turning, and segmented turnings are always polite and well behaved. A couple of years ago at the holiday party, I won this big oak. It's an oak pearl.
That was oak, I believe.
And that thing has been intimidating me ever since. I finally got it on my lathe and got started and turned the outside. Now I'm working on the inside. This isn't it, because it was a lot bigger.
It's not going to fit in that bag.
But, so I'm really not used to chunk turning, and I figured along the way I should try something a little less ambitious. So this is I don't know if it's big leaf maple. It's a maple burl that also came from Cook, and this is also kind of still in progress. But as I was turning it, I came upon a nice size void there. And so I always like to use, what is it, T88 epoxy with freshly ground espresso grind French roast mixed in. And I think it does a great job of filling in these voids and looking like it's a knot that was replaced. So, anyway, so I finished this, I don't know, yesterday maybe, finished turning it yesterday. At the last woodworkers meeting, there was a presentation from Sutherland and Wells. That's a local company that makes a bunch of different tung oil based finishes. And I thought I'd try it. So this just has so far a couple of coats of it's called Murdoch's sealer. It's tung oil, but it also has some resin in it, so it'll build up a little more. And so I'll bring this back next time once I've completely finished it, and you can see how that finish looks on this
The
surface.
tung oil doesn't get shiny.
Well, I think it does.
If you buff it,
If
you
you
get shiny.
So this is just the first sealer coat, which mostly, and this is a burl, so it's pretty porous. So most of the finish just soaked right in. This is a couple of coats, and as you build it up, and the tung oil and with the resin and the tung oil, it begins to sit on the surface, and then it becomes glossier. So we'll see. So I don't know. Haven't used this line of finishes before. We'll see how it comes out. And I'm working on that big burl. So I hope to bring that
Bring
next
that,
time, and that might be
bring that over here.
the last time I'll see you guys for a long while.
How long did that take to dry? That Murdoch's?
So I went and got it this morning,
Oh,
and I put on 2 coats since noon. So they say 24 hours, but this sealer coat is soaked right in. And it feels, there's no drag to the top. So it feels nice and dry.
So when you patch it with the epoxy,
Yeah.
did it protrude on either side and then you had to turn it, or you just kind
Yes.
of like gap it in?
No, I always overfill with the epoxy, and then I turn it down level.
So the biggest question now is, now that you've had some real fun compared to your segmenting, was this, what's your, are you always going to be that segmented guy and that's a one and done?
Oh,
Or did you, was that a pleasurable, this is a hell of a lot easier than building some of those masculine,
you like the
segmenting.
I don't know which is easier. It depends what part of the project you're talking
Yeah.
about. So obviously the
but
construction,
turning wise,
the construction is a lot more.
right.
But
But turning
once
wise,
you get to turning, it's all nice side grain, and you're not turning any end grain like you are with these chunk pieces.
Yeah.
So the turning is much easier. But I've been kind of doing house projects and I'm moving to California in the summer. So I've been getting my house ready for that and kind of been preoccupied. But I will get to that big burl and bring that in next time, I promise.
When you turn down the epoxy plug, do you use carbide tip tools? You just regular chisels?
I just use, yeah. I have carbide tools. I didn't use them at all on this. I don't use them very often. So, no, it was fine, just using a regular
Very light cuts.
Regular bowl gouge.
Yeah, just use very light cuts.
Yep.
Can't go as aggressive as you would with wood. But
No. But you start out, there's always some bumpiness on the outside. So you just make a nice, easy, light cut, and you can feel when you get down to the wood, and you can see how it.
This has that citrus smell on it.
Yes, that's So some of the Sutherland and Wells products, they make with the D-limonene citrus solvent, and this is one of them smells nice. So, and I had my so some of my so I have one of my lathes is already waiting for me out in California, and a bunch of my tools are out there, but I did bring my little D-Way beading tools back, so I could put some beads on this to decorate it.
Nice.
Okay, and next time when it's finished, I hope it will look and feel nicer, because it's fuzzy feeling right now.
So what's the difference between not freshly ground espresso coffee and freshly ground?
I don't know, because all I've ever used is freshly ground.
I always-
And I have a burr grinder, I set it at the finest setting, so it comes out with this really nice powder. And French roast might be different if you're working on a dark roast versus a lighter roast. You could experiment and see what goes with which wood.
I like using the used, because used is better, because you don't have the oils in it
Oh, okay.
versus fresh.
Yeah, you gotta let it dry.
Yeah, you use it up and then put it to one side and
Yep.
it'll dry pretty soon, and you do that 2-3 times and,
This was fresh. So.
yeah, but I mean, this is just, somebody told me to use the used. Well, plus, I'm using used, that means I got a free cup of coffee.
Right. I don't have an espresso maker, so I never grind coffee that fine. So
Well, you know what? I mean, I generally am good at picking out bits of fairly arcane knowledge. But I never would have had on my bingo card that you drink the coffee before you mix it into the coffee, before you plug it into the bowl, before you turn it down. That's.
So,
Do we?
I'm impressed.
Does anyone need a break? You want to jump into the?
didn't Jane bring her woodpecker thing?
talk about?
I have my 3D printer.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Not the 3D
Sorry.
printer, All right, so I've been having a hard time deciding what to do about the bottom of our bowls and everything. Because we have, you have the thing, what is it, the iron. So I saw this last year, Rick and I saw one.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It's a 3D printer, not 3D printer.
Laser.
It's a laser pecker. And this deep, you can't fit that under here, so you have to unscrew it, put it right on top of it, put it in your program. It has a battery pack, so you can do it outside. You can go up to a wall and go like this way, if you want. Also has a roller, which I'm going to be using on my house because we're putting a porch up, and on the posts, I'm putting like a 6-foot engraved piece on each one of it. It's really cool. And what else?
So if you attach that to the roller, where does your speed come in? How do you know, like?
It just does it on its own. You just put it on the board. You're gonna make sure that you have.
I was thinking you were gonna do it while they were standing up. No, so you laid it.
You lay it down and it rolls.
Okay,
Like
gotcha.
this. And it has, actually has these little metal, it looks like a battery. And you can stand these up, so if you're actually doing it the other way, you're sending it through this way, you need something to catch the wood so it doesn't tilt.
Right.
So Richards. All these nice little things. And the program is right on your phone. You pull it up, whatever you want, push it in there, and it goes right through it, starts right up and goes. Today was the first time I figured out how to use this. The days. So that's that. Any questions?
how much was it?
The whole thing came out to 1,000.
With
They
all
have
the,
4 different ones. They have a small one, which
I have.
he has. This is the second one, Laser Pecker 2. then they have 4 and they have 5. And each one of them does different metals. Like this does metal and wood and glass. The next one up does a little bit more. You can't do it on anything shiny. You have to, or white. You got to get your, like a Sharpie, color it, and put it on, and it works fine.
How,
many watts is it?
what kind of time,
That's 5.
5?
what kind of time frame does it take to like engrave into metal?
I haven't done a metal piece yet, but I did the wood piece. I did a section this big. It took 10 minutes.
And if
It was a
you don't have the
400
kind of phone with apps, can you plug it into a laptop?
It doesn't have to. It's Wi-Fi.
All right, well, that's, yeah, but I mean, I think the question was,
Or Bluetooth.
all right, never mind, those are all beyond me. If I can't plug it straight into my laptop, I
No,
don't know.
no,
do-
your
you
laptop,
do
if you
Bluetooth
put
to
your
your
laptop, you
laptop.
pull up the program on your laptop, do everything, and then you just hit preview. And then it comes up with some other stuff that you have to figure out if it's wood you're putting it on or metal, or if it's going to be on the trolley. And then after you do all that, you hit proceed, it downloads it right to this, and it starts printing. So you don't have to be connected at all.
What's it called again?
A laser pecker,
Laser pecker.
what a name, huh?
Yeah,
Very nice.
Oh, I brought it a piece. It's not the best one I did, it was just. And that's 10%. You can go up to, I think you can do like 40%, that's pretty deep. That's a lot of smoke.
So you brought in your engraving to woodworkers last time?
Yes,
And that was really nice, yeah, that was well done.
you saw that piece.
Yes,
I was wondering if that was gonna be little, when you're stretching it out.
Yeah.
We'd lose anything, but actually, it's
no, it looked really good.
I think that's really good on my porch. Just deciding whether I want it on 3 sides or just 1 side. All right, I'm done.
Do we need a break, or do we want to jump right into the demo? Yeah, let's take 5 minutes.
so describe this company to you.
Well, I think the labels are out of.
Yeah, I
go, boss?
Yeah.
Of expensive.
Pretty tired now.
Well, you can make it quick.
Version 1 of this, so it's
I'm good.
for me.
I'll do it if you need to try it. No, once I get going, I'll be fine.
Bigger one, which was a bigger.
Alright, so everything's over here, you're all good with those.
Area was
I
not.
think so. All right, turn it on.
The only thing is, when you have to do something for a whole lot.
This was my original one, leaving it.
Not quite yet.
That was the Yanks, and I chose this.
Right.
And then
For logos
I
and stuff?
sketched out,
Anything
spaces,
that's
and then.
Yes, that's-
and then
it's
solid.
solid.
That looks good. And so I did this.
Oh, I don't know if it's safe.
I did it with, one of the small, bandsaw with, like a 8-inch blade.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
Is there a gouge?
That is.
Pretty much
I don't have it.
Also, you use it. I got it from, they gave me SSID, I think it was.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Super.
I mean, it's the thinnest I had.
But I was showing you
Probably,
earlier about those, to get the smoothness of the bottom.
maybe,
Would you use one of those?
Yeah, this one here.
You would use that?
Yeah,
Just
because
so
it's
it's
less,
solid enough to.
so it's almost
Right.
as compared to this one.
And this was my first one, the second one, this one was separate.
You know, so this is
And then
more
these
point
Yeah.
versus this, and then plus this is smaller.
Because I was
So
using
when
this
you
the
go
most.
around that corner, you get just these little
That
Yeah,
way,
he
I
is
had
coming
that,
off it versus a
I
big.
had that setting on the.
The bottom feeder works better if you're in a real deep hole.
So
But
the
a
thing's
typical.
spinning, you touch it and.
Yeah, I'm not-
I never.
Oh, no, I didn't.
But if I'm
I
deep,
just stopped the
if I'm
lead
doing
and
like a
set it down and then figure out.
That's what this is.
I'll swing in there with
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Another, it's like,
You know, because I'm well over the tool
Yeah,
rack.
see, that's.
Yeah. And my bottom here is, I think, 3 foot.
I got a big
I know.
one too from,
And then the,
Yeah.
oh, you got that one, all right, that's that.
on the
Yeah, I
Packers.
mean, if you're over the tool rack, then you really need to get a, plus it's on 20, land on 20 again.
Right.
So, I can get some,
so,
you know. The other guy, Ashley Howard,
and
hers is
then
the
another
same way.
piece
It's
glued
like
in,
this.
and then you drill the
20
hole,
cents an inch handle plus the-
either like half inch and an inch.
But it's really, if you need to get deep, if you're doing this type.
No,
of
it
stuff,
just
you don't
discolors.
you don't need to
A
go.
line
Part of the picture.
down to each hole, but you also.
Sorry.
Before
Yeah.
you talk to Mike, that's
It
where.
wasn't me, it was the-
I put it up
never
there,
does
and
anything on
a
dry
little
wood.
groove
Wood,
would fit.
Because I pulled,
And I
it was
was
just like,
the opposite.
I
I was doing
pulled it out
dry
of
wood
the
and I was
box,
used to it.
told me what I needed.
I did my
to set
first
it up.
piece of wet
Within
wood.
15 minutes,
like
I
a
was
month
just
ago.
writing something.
So it doesn't go
I had
from
that
solar.
on video.
Oh, yeah,
Then I'm like,
whip right there.
But then I went back and did a small hole on it.
Oh, right,
Dry,
okay.
hot as a rock.
And you do that on the way?
Yeah, it is.
I
This
did
is
that, I
awful.
did that.
I'm used to the wet wood now. I'm like, I gotta throw all my plywood away.
Oh,
I don't
right.
really try with-
I'm thinking, oh, stuff down here.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
I didn't have to
So-
sharpen my
It took
tool.
me like 20 minutes to get all the screws out.
See, I had.
It was perfect. It
There's
was like a revelation.
major difference, and then
And,
you
all
get
right,
used to
so,
that.
oh,
Level.
so I'm
You know,
trying to figure
wet
out
and
what
dry
I
process, you get it
So
down.
it has flexibility.
And it's
So
dry.
because the holes allow you to cut, you don't have, if you just had a cut,
Bunch
you
of
know, the 8
red
cuts,
cedar.
Right.
there'd be some
And I got it nice
flexibility,
and
but
thin
the
and dry.
wood,
Like
by
3 or 4 days. And
and
Size.
it
there
has
you go. I
to
just
give.
shoved it in a bag with all the sugar.
Oh, okay, right, all right, got that, yeah.
Amazing. I brought in those 3 maple.
Yep.
Barrels, and they were like almost oblong. So the last one that I did, like the 8th one, was very big, maybe 6 or 8 inches. And I left it in the chuck. I left it footed in the chuck, and then I hadn't turned it.
How long have you been
around.
doing this?
I
Week or
just
two went
started
by.
a
So
week or
being
so
in the
before,
truck, holding that
Easter.
foot perfectly round, it didn't seem like it moved nowhere near the rest. Have you ever left any
I
of
was
your
thinking,
wet wood
I gotta try it.
No, because
in
it
the
usually
truck?
makes everything rusted.
Now, do you have a
Didn't,
Like-
well, mine didn't
thing
Yeah,
to
for
show you?
whatever reason, but, yeah, I was just wondering if I was, because I'm holding that foot.
No, no, for,
Did
Keep
that
the shape,
slow
make sure
the
you have the shape
movement
right.
down while
yeah, I don't have a picture.
I used to
of
think
my current
about
hole
what-
using.
I mean, it moved, but it
I need some
didn't-
donuts.
Doing it?
But
Yeah,
then
you
could-
who cares? You just-
Yeah, no, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Did I,
doing it and it's starting
you know,
to thump again. I'm like,
like, what I.
things are, these things are losing shape.
Yeah, it could very well.
Yeah.
It's real, real
$99
wet.
off a freight
Oh, yeah.
truck Just for.
It's soaking wet.
Oh, yeah.
Just for holding them while they dry for a couple of days.
It'll move.
Because the foot didn't, obviously couldn't.
I mean, I know it's different for all.
Right, because you
But then you miss
Just curious if you.
If you don't pay attention.
I don't know the answer.
Cedars like
Exactly
that.
what happens.
Yeah.
I just took it out of the
Cedar,
truck
wet
yesterday.
cedar. Make it soaking
And-
wet.
The foot is
No.
still round and it's more than a week old, maybe 2 weeks old. And, but the bolt did not move nowhere near
Yeah.
what the other ones did.
Okay.
Nowhere near. I mean, it moved, but nowhere near. So I'll bring that in when it's done. All right.
Really, I just put a fan on there. So-
Now I
'cause
move
that
the
has a
camera
fan
all
on
around.
There's a fan right here that sucks it out. I have.
That should work.
To suck it out.
Good. You ready?
I mean,
Yeah.
it goes so fast.
All right, Roland's ready, so let's.
Okay. Okay, what are we doing here tonight? I'm showing you how I get this balance in my wood. So I got a nice balance of hot wood and sapwood. I think it always looks pretty than if you only got it way up there. I also, this is a live edge, and it's, so here's the center. And so I let the center drive off a little bit so I could keep these two high points even. If I brought this over, then I would have lost this. So I was after this, and I let that move a little bit. And this is another live edge. But again, if you do it right, you wind up with this really nice look to it. I think this is my personal preference, is a nice balance. And I'm going to show you how I do that tonight. And then this is a piece of ash, I believe. And again, if you look at it, you got two eyes. And again, it's because of the way I spent the time to line everything up. And then you wind up with this. So I've got this nice center here, and then I got an eye on each side, which I think is, again, I like that a lot. And there's a way to make that happen. If this isn't just, oh my, look what happened. Like I have a plan before I cut my log. And this is actually 2/2 of a crotch. And all you figure, if you look at it, all the figure is in the inside part of that crotch, not the outside. So if you look at the crotch, and I know this from experience, if you look at the crotch and you say, well, God, if I make this outside the bottom of my bowl, then I get 2 or 3 nice bowls out of that with this nice, but what happens is this winds up on the floor because all of this is in the middle. So you have to go the opposite way. You have to make sure, and again, this is 2/2 of the same. And you can see that that's my pennant. How big that is, that's less than an eighth, I bet you. There's a ruler somewhere, but you can see that it's just a very small tenon. So you don't need, okay, let me refer, I'll say that differently. You will need a big tenon if you don't know how to use the tool. Because with just this is going to fly. But if you know how to use the tool, then you can get by with just a small tenon. I wouldn't use a small tenon on a big wonky piece, but this small tenon, and then when I turned it around, I made sure my live center was here, held it in place till I got almost everything away, and then I could clean this off. But I really like, this feather that comes down here and then it takes another turn here. But that's inside of every crotch. And why that is because you got those 2 limbs that are always moving. And by moving like that, it stretches the wood and it has to repair itself, stretches, repairs itself. And that's how you wind up with a really pretty feather. And when you cut that log in half, again, everything is planned. I didn't just go to it and just chop it up and say, okay, let's see what I get out of it. I use my chalk, I make sure I measure, I look at everything, and then I make sure I got a nice line. So I'm trying to go straight through the pith on the 3 points. And sometimes you got a little bit less here, a little bit more there, because its pith isn't always in the same place. But I always look for the pith and go from there. And then the pieces that I got here, this is a piece of cherry. And again, so here's the pith right here. So if you want a big bowl, you'd probably cut it across here. But I wouldn't do that. I would measure from here to here. And I'd find that equal point.
So when you're measuring the sapwood, what are you measuring?
I'm going to show you right now with the ruler. So what I end up doing is I will take and measure like this. So there's the pith. Right there, that's 3.5. So that's not right. So that's 6. That's not right. So that is 3, 6. So that's pretty close right here. So I would cut it this way. We'll show you that again with a pencil. What we're looking at. So this is the pith, and I would cut this way.
Oh, so you have an equal distance.
Equal, right. And if you have this equal distance, then this stays in the center part of your bowl. And then also the bottom of your bowl stays that like so. But you have to measure it, and so I measure every piece that I cut. So I'll cut it, like this is checked really bad, but I didn't have to go too far to get a nice piece of wood, so the piece in the middle, still pretty good. But that's how I end up doing that. And, something like this is another piece. Instead of coming across this way, I come, so here's the pith, and the line is right there, so I already measured between here and here. And that's pretty close, and then I muddied it a little bit because I'm looking for this high point too. So you try to look at it all and balance it all. You're looking at your sapwood, and you realize that you're going to put a tent in here. So a lot of this is going to go away anyway. So you're not too concerned with this because it's going to go away, and that's going to be your bowl will be basically right in here. And it doesn't matter how big, because I turn really big stuff at times. But then for here, I made a bunch of small things just to know what I was doing. And then, something like this here. Again, there's your pith. This one here, the pith is almost in the center. So I measure across, find out where that center is. So I'm 2, I'm 4, so that's actually perfect right there. So I would cut this, and then I'd have a bowl on each side. And because I cut it like this, then all this pretty green is going to be in the bottom part of my bowl. And then the top is going to be like the eyes that I have that I showed you on that bowl. So it's all a matter if you cut it, if you take the time and look at it, have a piece of chalk. And this is, I've been doing this a long time, not that long, but relatively a while, longer than you, I bet you. But what I will do is I will still go out there with my ruler, with my chalk, with a square, and make sure. And then what I'll do is I'll connect the dots. So I know this is here, and then I bring this one up, and I know this is here, and then I'll just make sure that when I run it through the chainsaw, I'm right there. And I try to go straight down, but it doesn't really matter because you don't want the pith in your bowl anyway. So if you're off a little bit, if your chain is dull chains never go straight. Dull chains do this always. They make an S curve. I don't know why. They just like to do that. They'll still cut, but not like a straight line. But it doesn't matter that much. Something like this, you don't want to waste too much wood because there's not much here. It's like something like this, you could just push through your bandsaw. But that's how I get that look.
And are you cutting right through the pith? Is that your intention?
Yes, so my intention, and then there are other people who say, oh no, you don't want to cut through the pith. You want to stay an inch to either side of the pith. And some people do that, because you get less cracking if you do that. But all my wood is green, so when I go out there with my chainsaw, I'm looking for a bowl that I'm going to go in and make. I'm not looking to cut this piece of wood and put it over there for a year. I'm going to go and cut it, bring it in, because I already know what I want in my head. And I know that this piece of wood that I'm going to cut will give me what I want. And then I'll bring it in and then I'll turn it. And because I know here's the pith, so once I mark it, and I'll show you, I will end up turning this much away. So by having this there, and I'm right through the center, that gives me room to move stuff around. And then once it's all set, then I can, clean up my face, which would be like so. So the pith was probably right about here. But when I had it marked, so then I could move it around a little bit. But see what happens if you do it right, you get this line straight through the bottom. And then if you do it really nice, I make those hots. I don't think you've ever seen the hots that I make, but I make a lot of hots. But if you do it right, you can have like a whale's tail coming right through the hot. And people like that. They like to see different stuff. And they don't mind, because I do everything green, things walk. And people like that. People want to see things they can't find in the store. And no mass-produced company does this. They just don't have the time. They just blast it all through, and then they make a round, and then it goes on the shelf. But when they look at my work, they say, wow, I don't see anything like that. And so this is nice. And then what I'm also gonna show you is, because this is dry, so I turn it green, just like everything else, but look what happens to the tenon. You know, it's oval now. And if you get an oval tenon, how can you put an oval tenon back in the chuck? You can, but you're only gonna have 2 points of contact. And if you turn on the lathe, it's gonna fly. So what do you wanna do? You wanna make it round again. And it's, well, how do I make it round? And that's what I'm gonna show you right now, is how to make this round. And so this, I got a little piece of, that's yoga mat, is what this is inside there. What I usually use is a piece of rubber about so thick, and it's dense. And so what happens is, a bigger bowl, once it dries, you've got 2 high points, 2 low points. So if you push this against something just hard, it's only gonna be touching on those 2 high points. And then when you turn it on, it's gonna wanna wobble. But using that high density foam that I use, it's a rubber type high density, gym mat, it's like a gym mat, so it's fairly dense. But now when I press it in, the high points will go, but then the low points will also get some amount of support. So it's not gonna wobble, which is a good thing.
Well, now I'm trying to figure out okay, so the gym mat is going into the bottom of the bowl.
Just like this.
But what's going into the gym mat?
I don't understand that question.
You're gonna find out in a second.
Oh,
You're gonna find out in a second.
Okay, right, got it.
That's
I
step
thought that
number
was the
2.
piece.
That's step number 2.
Yeah. So first you stick something in there,
Right,
and now if it's a big bowl, then basically you're holding it as you're trying to get it there, because you don't want it to fall off the center, so you want it. And then this just happens to fit just perfect around this shape. And that's why I brought this one. But I have several of these that are just hanging around, that I'll take and use for this, basically. And so what I end up doing, find that center, see, because that's my live center. So I never get rid of this point. And because the point is here, I can just bring it back in. Bring it up tight, like so. This. Yeah, should work. Now we're gonna go back on slow speed and start it up. This has got cracks in it and everything, so this is pretty much a piece of junk. But
White and then the dial. Nope,
white.
white.
Oh, that dial.
Yep.
That's the other one, okay. Okay. You can see it wobbling. Well, it's going to wobble because it's not round anymore. But it's, say that it's wobbling even, which means I got it on a nice center. So now I'm going to bring up my speed. These are a little too long. These are.
Okay, we can cut them.
Yeah, because that's what they want.
Okay.
So I can't drop it. Normally I would drop it down more. I just,
Well, if you go off the lathe a little bit, off the bed a little bit, then it'll be too far away.
yeah, then if I bring it back way up here.
Right.
But I can still do it. Bottom line is I can still do it. Now, what I'm gonna use is this. And this is basically a detail gouge. Nice little point on it. It's still, it's a finial, not finial, spindle gouge. You got to see the shallow? It's shallow versus this one here. This is a bowl gouge. It's deep. This one's shallow. So they're usually shallow, and bowl gouges are usually deep. And that's the spindle, so the spindle gouge is used, but you can use a spindle gouge like this, I use this for a lot of stuff. But- So what I end up doing is I can just come. And I went in on an angle, and because what I'm doing, I want a flat surface, I want a 90-degree in the way I just did it. But I got plenty of wood here. So now I'm just using the edge, not the point. And I'm just cleaning it up. And now I can come back here. And now that would fit in my chuck. So if I wanted to, so now because this has been sitting, so now I got yucky. So I wanted, first I turned it green, so it was really wet. I cleaned up a little bit. And I haven't sanded this yet. So now when I put it back in the chuck, now I can sand this nice and smooth. I can finish the inside. I can put my finish, whatever type of finish I want to put on it, all while it's being held by this tenon. And now when it's done, then I can just cut this tenon off. And I'm going to cut the tenon off basically the same way as what I would hold it just like this. And then I would just remove that till there's a small nub. And then I'll use a little saw and cut the nub off. And then I'll use a little power sander and just sand the bottom. And then after that, then I put my name on it and make it look nice.
But now, when you put that back in the chuck to finish it, you at that thickness, you can't turn it, correct? Like you can't go in there with your gouge and.
Oh, no, it's all done.
Right.
When I take this.
Whatever's moved is moved.
Yeah, you can't turn it because
You
everything.
can't, right.
It's all out of round. So you wouldn't want it unless I left it this thick. And then I can turn somebody, but that's twice turn. I don't do that. I like it to be warped. But I also, by doing this, that makes my bottom flat. So when it sits on the table, it's always going to sit flat. And I always have with me, I know I have it here. It's the most important that I brought it here. It's right in front of me. What I'll do is I'll make sure that when I do this, that it's concave. And I can see a lot of light in the middle. And so when I take this bottom off, then I can just go straight across. So I got a nice cove there, and then I can just clean that off and then dress it up, and then it's done. But that's how I deal with stuff like that. You know. We don't need this piece anymore. Let's get mine. And what I did is I turned that speed down. Like I'm going to put something new in here, and I don't ever want to turn it on full speed. So now it's really slow. In fact, I don't think it'll turn at all. No. And so that way, I'll just gradually increase my speed. And now here's another piece. Doing this one today, and actually this is the other half of this log. But the shape of this was such that this was really thin, like this one. You know, so basically this came out of this side, and then the big one came from here. But I I've got so much sapwood here, and I want to keep this shape. But there's enough sapwood, so I know that once I put a tenon on it, I'm gonna lose something. And then when I started to turn it, I said, wait a minute, I want this to go through just like so. So instead of having a deep bolt, I went to a shallower bolt. And so right where I'm at now means that when I turn the inside, I'm gonna have that, that nice line going through it. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna work on this one for a minute, and then I'll show you how I do that.
So Roland, with the piece you had over there that you just took off, where you fixed the foot on that, how do you sand that? How do you sand the outside?
How would I do that? That would, sometimes I'll go slow speed, and then even though it's going boom, 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 it's not that much. So now you can hold the sandpaper to it, but mostly I use a power sander on it.
Power sand.
And inside, outside, I'll just,
In doing the inside, finishing up the inside, you said you would use a tool on that.
oh, inside here?
Yeah.
No, I just
You're
power
done.
sand it. No, I would still,
Sand it, okay,
I would still have to power sand it.
okay.
And then, up underneath here, I can't, so I'll slow it down, and now I can hold the sandpaper up
Sandpaper,
underneath it,
got it.
even though it's bouncing around a little bit. But if I speed it up, then it's, again, I'm not sanding anything, it's just bouncing around.
Got
But
it.
just go nice and slow, now I can get it in there and then actually make it work.
Which is another reason to get a variable speed lathe. If you have a lathe that starts up at 400, that's not an option, right?
Right. So I can run a piece of sandpaper.
What
on
is
it like
the
that.
speed, what's the speed there?
324 right now. And the same thing inside here, I can get inside here. And then I would use the power sander in the bottom. Is how I would do that. And then people always will tell you when you're using YouTube or you're going to show, they always say, make sure these 2 points are as close you can get. Because once those 2 points are close, then you got a full circle. And then when you bite down on it, you got a whole circle holding it. But if I made that close, because right now this is where that's going to go, just like so. Then once it whops, I can't turn it because then it'll never fit back again. So I don't mind having this a little bigger, and it works fine for me. And this is the same thing. So this shoulder right here it pitches in a little bit, so that way the outside of my jaw is touching this top point, and then this is pretty much a straight 90. So this will drop in, and then I push it tight against those jaws, and then lock it in place. And now I can bring this back up against here. More control over my head. And try to always remember to turn by hand before you turn it on. Because if you turn by hand and something's out of whack, you don't have to bang, bang, bang. But turn it by hand, then it works out nice that way. What we're going to do. So my button's over here to start it up. You go. Let me just get rid of some of this. Right now. But the next thing I want to tell people who are learning how to do this, and that's when I'm gonna cut this little nub off now, but I'm gonna pretend that this is the bottom of my bowl. So I'm gonna sweep from here to the bottom of my bowl, because I'm only over here. Rather than wait till I get to the bottom of my bowl, like your bowl, that red cedar, you were down here before you tried to do a finished cut. But when you start doing a finished cut at the top, you get to know what you're doing before you get to the bottom. You know, so you get your tool set up nice. No, I just want to try to get that nub off. I'm a little too hot. Okay. And what is this thing called a bevel right here in the front? And that's all I'm doing, is I'm just picking up that bevel, and then I'm almost like pushing the tool into the wood. And the bevel will let it follow across. And by doing that, you know, so I got a nice little finish right there.
Roland, your shoulder is blocking the camera, so we can't see what,
Yeah, that camera
Well, I'm
is
not
like
the
in
camera
the worst
guy.
place possible.
I know,
I
it's
told my
not
wife,
that easy. Let me try something.
screen right in front of me so I can see what's going on, so that way I know.
Let me try something different.
Couldn't you like just take off the shoulder or something? Never mind.
I think Roland's had enough accidents for a while.
So then, there's that bevel, so I'm just going to push that bevel, and it's just right in there. I couldn't make that swing with the tailstock there. So what I want to do now, again, that same thing. So now I'm going to come like so, pick this edge up,
How's that better?
bring this out like so, and walk that way around. And when you get to that little nub, you have to remember that little nub isn't turning. Because the closer you are to the center, the slower it's moving. You know, so this is going really fast, that's going a little slower. And that center, that little nub, that's not moving at all. So if we go plow into that, it's just going to snap off and leave that little hole like you have in that red cedar bowl. You know, that's all that's gonna happen. It'll snap off and you'll leave that little divot there, and now you gotta try to get rid of that. It's really a pain. But then, so this is a big one. Now this is a little one. And when I was telling you about, you get those little furry pieces there, so now I can come back over like so. Now I just take little touch off. And you gradually go up to that part. So with this smaller tool, with 3/8, I get a nice smooth finish. Or this is even better than if you're trying to sand it. You got a nice finish right now. You got a little angle here that's coming off? Now when I go down, now I'm getting rid of some of that volume. But if every cut you do, you pretend that that's the finished cut. Then once you get to the bottom, you got a good handle on what's going on. I'm gonna go back to this side. I'm just gonna get rid of this tool here, so I'm gonna put this back so I can see what my wall thickness is gonna be. So now I can go back to here. And when you're turning green wood, you want to step your way down. You don't want to get rid of all of that. You don't want to get rid of all this wood here, because now you need this to stabilize this wall. So what I can do now I'm pretty deep, so now I can get this wall thickness to just the way I want. And I'm looking on the outside of my bowl as I pick that up. Now I'm going to trim my edge, so it's going to be almost like a shear cut. So I'm going to put this almost like so, and then I can come right into my bowl here. Because what I've got is a little bit of an undercut that's going on. That's why I'm having to come way out here. So I can just pick this. Basically, it's just a shear cut, because you're getting all these little fuzzies coming off of it. Just so I can get the wall thickness I'm looking for. with this, if I'm not careful, if I'm riding this part of my tool and I go into this wall, this catches. And now I have a catch. And you might have heard a couple of those, but those were catches where I was actually coming around here and I had too much wood, so I was, when this edge plows into that wall, then it wants to catch. Right now, that's pretty close to that thickness I want. So, habits, all habits, when it starts, always over there. I'll put this on for a second. Just get rid of some more wood. Now I'm looking to make sure I got that nice piece of hot wood going through the bottom. I don't want to get too much. I don't want to lose it. I want to get near that center. I slow it down. I push it hard. And I just watch it go this way and then go right way. And because you've been doing this finish cut from start, now you've got that down. It's like a breeze when you get in there.
No, that one's still, that's still green, right?
Yes,
Because the other one is dry.
the other,
The other one that you were used to.
the one that I did the tendon on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was dry. This is just fresh cut today. And then in a minute, I'm gonna show you something else that I do. This right here, you can. I'm going to leave that just like that. But now I want to show you how I mount a fresh piece. This way here you get a little idea how I'm doing my bottom. And that's pretty much. Now I'll show you how I actually mount.
How fast were you going, Roland?
I don't have this a speed indicator. 1620.
Okay.
I just, because I got that robust and they don't know that it's just goes this way or that way. So I never know what that's going to be. But once this thing is balanced, then you can crank it up and it's fine. But so that just gives you an idea how that can happen.
Do you actually gauge the moisture in your wood, or you just do it by feel?
What do you mean? No, I just cut it green. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah. Do you have a
Right,
gauge that says this is 23.7% moisture or whatever?
Well, yeah, but I don't care about how wet it is. It's how dry it is. I want it, so when I think it's dry, then I'll put the meter on it to see if it's at the right. And then, so you can see this part here where it's nice and smooth, no lines. And don't pay attention to this because I'm not caring about that. I'm just that bottom, and there's a little nub on that bottom that you'll see there. But if I want to, I could have taken that off too. But for the sake of time. How do I lock it, turn it in?
Turn it in, yeah.
Okay, got it.
That's green wood from the wood pile, or you cut it off a tree today?
I picked it up on the side of the road a couple of weeks ago, a month ago. Been sitting there as a log shape, and, I went through it, and,
So still
I
pretty wet.
grabbed some pieces, and I said, okay, this is just the right size to be able to bring. So, it's not too big, and, okay. Another problem that I have, something's right in front of me and I can't see it.
I was gonna say it's right there. I can see it from here.
There are two ways to do this. I'm going to be using this 4-point drive center, because I'm just going to be plowing into that wood, and I'm not really caring too much about it. And I don't care if I get a catch, because it won't matter. This is called a safety drive center. So it's a cup. So if I'm spinning with it and I get a catch, the wood's just going to spin on this. This will actually drive the wood. But this one here might be more dangerous if you don't know what you're doing yet. So this is the best one to use. This one, if you're just trying to plow in, and that's all I'm trying to do right now.
That's a great learning,
Yeah.
a great learning tool that,
Safe.
yes, yes. But once you learn, then it becomes very annoying.
Yeah, because it proves you didn't learn much.
Right, exactly. Yes, there's some truth to that. I turn with the big bite. That tells you exactly what I'm doing. You'll rip right in and get out of the way. Don't stop.
I put on that burrow.
The big bite, yes. That thing will hold anything. You can turn your house on that.
Is that Chuck you're talking about?
One Way sells it. It's a 2-prong with a center point, and it fits in the jaws of the chuck. It's only a square piece of steel, about that big. But when you get over that 12 to 13 inch,
So what I end up doing,
works really well.
is I try to find my center. Let's see, come up here. All right, so I want to get this and this, and then if it's out of center some, now I can move this over a little bit, till I get these two edges balanced, and I gotta make sure what's going on here. And then I'll look, okay, I got a crack over here, so a little checking going on over here. So what I'll end up doing is I'll move it closer on this side. And then you can see where the pith is. This is where the pith would have been. You can see it right here. And this, between here and here, is pretty much where that center is. So I already did this at home because I want to give you an idea of what it is I'm trying to do. Now what can do is here. I don't want to get too tight right yet. What I like to do now, and I promise I won't shine this light in your eyes. This is just one of those little pointers. Little catch light, pretty much. So what I'll do with this is I'll end up catching this point, and then I can do this. Okay, that's actually pretty close right there. They're pretty close. Now I'll go over to where my hotwood is. From here. And that hotwood's pretty close too. And now I can go over here and bring it around. And I know that this isn't perfect because that's a chainsaw, but I still want to have it pretty close. And right now that's nice just the way it is, so now I can crank it up tight. Now it's lines on. And But as I'm cranking this in, I wanna make sure I can push this till it's not turning anymore. That's pretty good. That's a good bug right there. Now, if there were bark on here, I would have chipped away this much bark, because you don't want to put a live center on bark. You want to make sure it's on a solid piece of wood, because the bark, once you turn it, it's going to go do a trick. So, bring that back slow. That's it. Then I turn it by hand, make sure it doesn't hit, that's hitting, so we want to do this over like so. Turn it. Yeah. But sometimes I might move that piece of wood 3 or 4 times till I get the grain pattern just the way I want it. And now I'll show you how I get rid of it. And the other thing is, I'm trying to show you is, you don't need a bandsaw. You don't need this piece of wood to be round to put it here. So I just take these little ears off, and now I can turn it, instead of trying to make a nice round blank. And because I left this here and there's extra wood here, I can still move it like this. I can move it like this. I can do things with it. If I put a face plate on this right now, that's all I got, is what the face plate tells me I have. But because I got between 2 centers, 2 points, I can move it and twist it. And if it's a big piece, I might move it half a dozen times. I might actually start turning this, and then once I get rid of some of that wood, I realize, well, wait a minute, that's not how I want it to look. And then I can still move it again till I get it to where I want it. No. No, it's on slow now, so. About 800. You don't want to be over here trying to make it round, because now you're gonna beat the crap out of yourself, because you got end grain and then the face grain, and so most of your bowl is fall end grain. So you don't want to be here. So you want to come this way. And this is what I'm going to show you how I do. I sneak up on this. So I can start on the outside edge here. So I can pull down. And what I'm trying to do now is make sure I go deep enough that I can put my tendon on. And you see that's, I gotta go about this much more.
what I'm doing now is I'm riding that bevel. And I'm pretty much, once I pick this cut up, that bevel's there. And now I'm pushing this tool in. And what that bevel does is it's just gonna snowplow. And believe it or not, when you have a lathe at home and you come and use somebody else's, it's like, let me use this a little. There's
Especially,
just so much, it's different.
especially if it's a Laguna.
And what I want to do now is make sure it's round. I'm pretty close to round. You know what I want to do? I just want to even out, flatten that, because right now it's rough, and so I can't see that bowl yet. But once I get this flat, so this is going to be the top end of my bowl, so I can see. And I'm doing the same thing, as I pick up my cut, and then I push that bevel through. And when I do that, then I got that nice smooth cut. And then I also start looking at how much of that pith is there. I got a little bit. So we want to get a little bit of that out. I can still see that grain from the pith, and you don't want to see that. So again, I drop my handle down, put it against my body, pick up that bevel. Ride that bevel in. Next thing I want to do is give you an idea where my bowl can be. Now we want to put a tenon on that. Big bite. Big bite. Put this side, so that's my tenon. That's I never changed this. It's always my tenon side, and that's the one that's a little bigger than I need. Put the mark right so. And I make sure that's right on the money. So what this means is I still got a little bit that's in my way. That'll be in the way of the tenon, so I still got to move that down some. So. But I know where the tenon's going to be, so I can see that line. Oh, now I can just push it.
go back to this. The detail, that's what I can, what I want to do is I want to make sure that that's going to be, it's going in. That's right there. What I'm doing now is showing you basically how I get rid of my tenon. I'm not getting rid of this one yet, so I'm going to show you what happens when I do. Have it still on. Now, if I left this here and I get that bowl and I try to sit it, it will never sit flat. So what I always do is I'll drop this down. So I ain't doing it on this lathe. As far as that goes. Normally what I would do would be put this down like so, and I would catch the bottom of this, and then make sure that this is tight against my tool rest. And I make sure that that is tight against here. And then I'll lock it in place, and then I'll just take my saw. I even brought the saw. I was going to show you this whole thing, but I know this isn't going to do what I want it to do. What I end up doing is I'll just saw that off, and because this is tight on this, I can just bring that live center right back up to that point, and then crank it back in tight, and now I'm almost perfect. It might be out a little bit, but it doesn't matter. It might be out, but
So you're bringing that tool rest up to hold it square to the.
right. So that
So
way
it
it's not
doesn't-
flopping around
right.
because it's still in that drive center. So by
Gotcha.
dropping that underneath there, bringing it tight and pushing it tight against here, so it's tight here, and then it might move a little bit, but then you got enough wood that you can clean that up. It's going to be just a little bit, and then once you get it back on the live center, then you just take this tool again and just bring that back and true it all up. We don't have to care about what's going on here because it doesn't matter, because we're not finished yet. So.
I don't think my lathe goes that low either.
Well, mine does.
Learn something new every day. See, I did not know that.
But it just makes it easier to have a flat bottom. And you always have that live center point, so you can always, because this was this long, but I chopped it off. And then I reset it, and then, but now I can put it like so and say, ooh, I like the look of that bolt. So we're not gonna do that. We're gonna do one more thing here. I want to put, so this is the tenon, and I want to put another little shelf there. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I put that there. So now when I'm forming my bowl, I have this much extra wood that I can make this run. Because when you're looking at the bowl, you want it to look like it's a full circle. You don't want it to look like it's just black. So by leaving this here, that's a little extra, that's good. And now what I want to do is find out what kind of bowl I want it to look like.
Now, I didn't go and blast right off that, because if I did, I could chip this out. And that's why I stopped just before I got to that end. What I'll do now is just that up a little bit more. Kind of like the shape I would go for this one down. And then there's a thing called the golden, there are two things. One is a golden rule, and we're not dealing with that tonight. We're going to deal with the golden ratio. And a golden ratio is this little tool. And that's like 2/3, 1/3. So when you make a transition, so here's a transition right here. So I want it to be, let's bring that out of the light, so for it to be right, that should be right here, my transition.
Can you do that on the top of the turning?
Oh, okay, so you can see what I'm doing. I told you this is where my transition was going to be. And so this, because if you do it a lot, and then you take this out just to check this out, so, well, I'm really almost there. So basically, that's almost there. So that's going to be my 1/3, and then this is going to be the bottom, which is my 2/3. So this is where I want my transition to go. So I can go from here out and from here down. And then when you're looking at it, for some reason, I don't know who decided this, maybe the Greeks, the Romans, somewhere way back there, decided that that was a good look. So it's 2/3, 1/3, or 3/5, 2/5, but it's somewhere in there, versus if you just let it go. The other thing is you want this to be 1/3. So this is 2/3 of the base. So you want your base to be smaller than your top. And then there are some people who like to buy a bowl, and I basically call it a dog bowl, because it's this open this like and open this, so it's a straight wall. But if you get that nice little radius that drops down, it just looks so much pleasing, when you're looking at it. It's so much nicer. But I think that's it. Because I'm genuinely very excited. So
And it's balanced.
I pretty much got everything I wanted you to know. This bowl, I didn't tell you about this bowl, but this is called a color box bowl. So it's a round bottom. And the nice thing about round bottom bowls is you can have fun with them. Well, one is, if they're in the sailboat, the ballast, when the boat starts to move, this will always stay like so, just because of the way it is. But the other thing is you can put it there and spin it around, which is fun. I mean, you can do that with a flat bottom bowl. You can't do it. A bowl like this. And the idea with a calabash bowl is Hawaiian. And the reason why they had a calabash bowl, a round bottom, is when they were out on the beach, they could actually put that bowl in the sand and it would hold. It'd be a nice little hole for it. So I hope I showed you a couple things that you didn't know. I know I showed him one thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Now I gotta go home and check my tool rest. I don't think my tool rest goes that low either. But I had my tool rest custom made, so
Okay.
I can chop it some more if I have
Oh,
to.
right. So,
Yeah.
So that's it. That's what I came here to show you tonight.
Nice.
Thank you.
And I already showed you how to take the inside of the ball out.
Yeah.
Somewhere over there.
Somewhere.
And now I show you how I do the outside.
Yep.
I think somebody has that ball out there.
Right over
Over there, okay. And if I were gonna turn this